Hello guys, welcome back to my video. It's me once again, JK Picture Group, and I want to talk to you about how I became a photographer slash videographer. It was a journey. I remember 2012, a friend of mine who had a Nikon D40X APS-C camera, the sensor itself, and he used to carry with him along when he comes to church. And he was then Reverend Duke. So he was a reverend in church. And one day he approached me and said, James, I would like you to take pictures in church. I was not into photography, really. I was into more IT, which I am today, informatic. So he asked me, well, I would like you to take pictures. So I said, why not? So I took his camera, a beautiful Nikon D40X. It was a DSLR camera, a very nice one, APS-C. And you can see it here. That's how it looks like. He had on that camera a FX mount with, it has 17 to 200 millimeter, f3.5 to f6.5. So that was the lens he had on the camera, we took very nice pictures. So those days I used to take in JPEG. I never took in RAW, even though you could have taken in RAW. It was JPEG. It was a very snappy, nice sounding shutter speed camera. Once you click, it sounded very nice and it took beautiful pictures. Those pictures was taken primarily in church. I never took picture outside church because the camera was not mine, it was my friend's own. So all the pictures I took was for church events. And yes, that's where I started my photography. I started taking pictures in church events. I was not geared to photography, but I just did it because he needed someone to take picture. And those days I was like, okay, why not? Let me just start taking pictures because it's also a good thing to do something in church. And as time goes on, we got a Canon D5 Mark II. And that Canon D5 Mark II was a full frame. It was not APS-C. And those days we did not have any lens for the camera, so we never used it really. But then we got a nice 70 to 200 millimeter f4. But before that, we were using a kit lens, which was from another friend of mine, which was actually a 50 millimeter lens. It didn't have the best f-stop. It was a normal 50 millimeter lens, 2.8 Canon. And we used that one for a while. We were not so geared to the camera because it was so complicated to take pictures because we had no knowledge how to use the camera correctly. So most of the time we put it on automatic, and because the room is so dark, the shutter speed was very slow. So it took always blurred pictures. The pictures were never nice. It was always delayed. It's like you take the picture, but you move. We had no knowledge about how to use camera correctly. But somehow that Nikon D40X always took beautiful picture because it had a good lens. And as time goes on, we acquired the 70 to 200 millimeter f4, and I started going into the photography. I wanted to know more, so I started learning about the camera. I started learning about shutter speed. I started learning about ISO. I started learning about how to set up your camera to take the best picture and not blurred picture. Why is it important to have a faster shutter speed and a lower shutter speed? Why is it important to dial your ISO correctly and not to miss? Otherwise, your pictures will still be blurred. How to get sharp pictures. And those days, we did not have an on-flash camera, but on the D40X, it had a pop-up camera. So which means we could also take when the light was low. So it was always automatic. You just click pop-up, it flashed twice, taking nice pictures. Of course, the pictures were not always nice because the pop-up camera, once you have a long lens, it blocks some of the lights going through, and it looks strange sometimes when you are shooting from far behind. It looks like there was some light blocked. So some part will be dark, some part will be highlighted, and which was not really nice, but still somehow I came to learn about those cameras, those flashes, and those lenses, why it is important, and we got the best out of this two cameras. So both camera was not mine. It belongs to the D40X belongs to my friend Reverend Duke, and the D5 was for the church, but it was not my camera, so I never went deeply into how to use it correctly. So I shot with Nikon, shot with Canon, and a time came where I decided, you know what, I really like taking pictures because I was very interested at a point taking pictures, so I thought to buy my own camera. There was the issue. Now, the issue was that we had APS-C cameras those days, which were very nice, and we had full-frame cameras those days, which was extremely nice. But we had also other type of sensors. I'm not going to go into details, but I was focusing on these two, APS-C and full-frame. So as time goes on, I decided to get my own camera, and I researched about Canon. I researched about Nikon, about Fuji, about Sony, about Pentax, about Panasonic, about Lumix. I mean, there were so different brands, so many brands with different type of cameras. The sensor was most of them were from Sony because they had the best sensor at that moment, and some of them, of course, were from other brands. Now, when it came to selecting the camera, I researched, and then I came to one camera which I was very interested. That was a full frame camera. That was the Sony A99 Mark II. Now, the A99 Mark II was those days one of the best cameras you can buy. It was a SLR. It was not a DSLR. It was an SLR camera. And the difference there was that the DSLR had the mirror which flips when you are taking the picture, and the SLR had a mirror, but it never flipped. It was fixed, and the sensor can see through. It projected the picture you want to see, but the sensor still sees through, and you could see what you are taking. It was a technology Sony pioneered, which was very nice those days, and I realized that Sony was going into another direction which the other companies were not going to. So Sony had this technology, and I realized that, you know what, if I'm going for my camera, I want to go for the ones that are developing a technology which has not been on the market, because in the future, it's going to be a great hit. So I decided to check on the Sony A77 Mark II, but there lies the problem. It was a full frame, and it was very expensive. I mean, I couldn't afford it those days. I mean, for my first camera, I could not afford it. It was quite expensive. So there was a second variant, which was the 77 Mark II, A77 Mark II, which was also very nice. And I went for that one. My first camera, I paid around 1,600 Swiss franc for it. It came together with the body and not a prime lens, sorry. It came with the body and a kit lens. And the kit lens that the 77 Mark II came with was a 16 to 50 millimeter. It was a 2.8 aperture, which was very nice. I mean, f2.8 throughout, from 16 to 50 millimeter, which was, if I'm not mistaken, the equivalent of 25 to 70, or no, 24 to 70 millimeter on a full frame, because the A77 Mark II was an APS-C camera. It was not a full frame camera. And as time goes on, I started getting into photography, learning about light, learning the importance about all the shutter speed and everything. So I really got in depth into photography. And I loved it so much that I decided to make it my hobby. And I started with photography, with videography, and that's where I came into photography and videography. So as time goes on, I decided to acquire a second lens for my Sony A77 Mark II, and I got the Sigma 18 to 35 millimeter f1.8. Very, very beautiful lens. It was for APS-C lens, very, very beautiful. I took beautiful pictures with them. In fact, I was more excited. I went out to take more pictures because I had this two combo, which was very nice. Now, as time goes on, I bought also different kind of equipment, different kind of flash. I had the Sony. Those days, I'm not sure exactly the model, but the best that Sony had those days, it was Sony flash, and it cost me around 600 Swiss francs. It was really the best flash you can buy from Sony, and it was so nice to use. It was really a flash which I really enjoyed using. Took beautiful pictures of flash pictures. I mean, it was nice. It was really nice. Now, I also acquired different things towards my photography, and we moved to Spain. Now, when we moved to Spain, I had my equipment back, which had the value of 5,000 to 6,000 Swiss franc. It was quite a lot, and it got stolen. It got lost. Now, I decided to get another set of camera, but this time I went back and I went to research. And I researched, okay, which brand should I go along with? Should I go with Sony? Should I go with Fuji? Should I go with Pantex? Should I go with Panasonic? Should I go with Lumix? Should I go with, I mean, there were different brands. Canon, Nikon. I still stick with Sony. For the reason, because Sony then switched from mirrored to mirrorless. And they had then the Sony A7, which was the first generation, and they came up with the Sony A7 Mark II, which was the second generation. Now, when I was going with, now why I went with Sony was because of the mirrorless. So Sony was a pioneer into the mirrorless camera, taking pictures and also videos. So they had this hybrid system, which I liked so much because, of course, I want to take pictures and also want to take videos if I want to. And I went with the Sony A7 Mark II, and it had the S-Log. The S-Log 2 was beautiful those days. You had a baked-in profile, which you can shoot and then color it yourself in Adobe Premiere Pro or in After Effects or in DaVinci Resolve, depending on what program you are using. So I went for the Sony A7R Mark II, not the A7 Mark II, the R Mark II. It had the 41 megapixel, and then I bought it with the kit lens. The kit lens I got was a 2470 f3.5 to 5.6, and I'm reading it here from my note in case you don't know. f3.5 to 5.6. I bought it, I didn't buy it new, I bought it used, and I got it for the price of 1,500 euro because we were then in Spain, together with the kit lens, not separated, together with the kit lens, 1,500 euro. So I bought that one for 1,500 euros, and that was when I started even going deeply into photography because I had a full frame camera with a full frame lens, with a kit lens, which is good. It's not a bad lens. It's just that, of course, you don't have that sharpness of, I mean, it did great pictures. The pictures was not really sharp that you can say, wow, this is a sharp picture. You always had to compensate with ISO and shutter speed. Why? Because your lens had variable aperture. And that's what you had. That's what I had those days. So as time goes on, I used it for years and years and years. And so we came back to Switzerland, and in Switzerland, I saw that, oh, we still had the Canon lens 70 to 200 millimeter f4. So we got the adapter. The adapter was from E mount to EF mount. Like this, we can use our Sony to take pictures. So I had the adapter and I adapted it to my camera, and I took beautiful pictures with the f4. I mean, it was not that fast. It's an old lens on an f2 and E mount. So it was not that fast, but it took good pictures. Once it had the focus, you had beautiful pictures. You had enough zoom. So as time goes on, I decided to upgrade. And yes, again, I did the research and I decided to stick with Sony. I was like, look, Sony is killing it. They are killing it with their mirrorless camera. I mean, they're just killing it. And so the Sony had the features that I needed. I mean, yes, the other brand came up with different features and I mean AI and this and that. Look, it was good and that, but I was not into that. I was not into that. So I gifted my Sony A7R Mark II to the friend of mine, which was also in church. And I bought myself the Sony A7R and I sticked with the R model. I didn't went for the basic Sony A7. I stick with the R model. I went with the R Mark IV. I have right now a 61 megapixel camera, which I am shooting with, which you are seeing me, which I'm shooting with beautiful lens. And I've taken beautiful wedding photography, event photography, party photography. I mean, you call it sport photography. I mean, beautiful pictures with this camera that I'm shooting right now. And right now, on the camera, I have the Sigma 24 millimeter f1.4. Yes, 24 f1.4. I love this prime lens. Sharp, fast. I mean, it does what you want it to do. Taking video focus, beautiful. f1.4. And I acquire and bought also the Sigma 35 millimeter Mark II f1.2. I love this lens. No, seriously. Autofocus, you can map this button. f1.2, beautiful lens. I took beautiful wedding pictures with it. Event photography. And I acquired myself also a zoom lens. Tamron 70 to 180 millimeter f2.8. This lens is also beautiful. I love them. Now you might ask yourself, but hold on, you bought yourself a Sony A7 R Mark IV and you are getting Sigma lenses and Tamron lenses. Why don't you have a Sony lens? Look, let's be real, those are expensive, okay? My budget does not go there. My budget can only afford the Sigma and the Tamron. And by the way, it does not mean that the Sony is far more sharper than this one. Those lenses you see here, they are excellent. They are art lenses, especially the Sigma and the Tamron, excellent. They compete with the Sony. The only difference when you have the Sony is that, yes, you have a faster shutter speed. Do I need that? Not really. With so much megapixel, if I'm shooting on full frame and I'm shooting with a fast shutter, I mean, I don't need to have a lot of pictures. On a wedding, taking pictures, I can press on the shutter, it will snap, and the card never gets full. The buffer never gets full. So it always upload before it even try to get full. So I never loses any picture. I can just press on it and it's continuously shooting because I have also a fast SD card inside which the buffer can upload quickly. So I never have a problem with fast shutter. So on top of it too, Godox V1, it got spoiled. So I decided to get myself the latest on the market, which is the Godox V100S. Now the V100S, I love it. It's a great lens. Now I'm just using this one just for backlight. As you can see, just for backlight. It's the new model with the touchscreen. Okay, it's the new one with the touchscreen, and it's beautiful. I love it. I like using it. is something which I will always recommend everybody. And then I also have here the Godox X Pro Mark IIs for off-camera flash, and also with other Godox product. It doesn't only just trigger for Godox, you can also buy any kind of off-camera flash and use this trigger to trigger them. They are all capable of doing that. Now for my audio, as you can see, I have it here. I have on me the small rig, okay? Now, maybe I might butcher the name, but I'm not sure. It's Foreverla or Foreverla or Foreverla. I'm not sure how to pronounce why they wrote Foreverla, okay? W60. Now, it comes with one receiver and two sender, okay? Now, each of them, I don't want to go into details. One of them is here. The receiver is on that camera and one is in the box. Now, this box does not have battery. It does not have an inbuilt battery, which means you have to charge it before using it. On top of it, I also got myself the Sony. Now, I'm going to butcher the name, okay? Sony ECM B1M. Whatever it means, okay? Whatever it means. This one is my running gun mic. I take it with me everywhere. In case I need to take video, I have it with me. I pop it on, it just works. Period. My running gun camera. On top of my camera, I have the small rig cage. I don't know the name by heart, but it's the cage for Sony a7R and also for Sony a7 Mark IV. So the Mark IV and the Mark V, you can use the same cage because the camera is built the same. It's only just the small monitor has been extended. On top of it too, in case I need more audio source, in case I'm doing a podcast or I'm doing some kind of recording from the wedding video recording, I have myself here the Zoom H6. Now, I bought this when I was in Spain and it has never failed me. Of course, it's not built with Accu. It comes with, you have to buy battery. But once you buy the battery and you put it inside, you can record good for 24 hours with no issue, okay? It has many ports for your audio, and it has on top of it also hot swap for things like additional, let me just put it here. You know, you have things like this, like Zoom mics where you can buy, it's like a small hot swap mics. I'm not sure how they are called. And you can buy them and you can use them directly without connecting them to a cable, okay? So there are more things to show, but that will be the next video. But one of the things that I have to say is that I was very glad that my friend asked me to take pictures in church, because through that, I've made it now my profession. I've made it my profession, taking videos, taking pictures on events, and enjoying the time of being a photographer and a videographer. So this is just a small background of my photography life and the equipments that I have. The next video, I'm going to show you all the equipments that I have, all of them, not only the ones that I've shown you now, all of them. And then the video after that will be a surprise. I'll talk about my setup and what I have, addition to my photograph career. So thank you for watching, and subscribe. If you are not subscribed, subscribe, and see you next time. Bye.